Hey, well, welcome to Bethel Online and our Daily Hope Devotionals. Glad that you tuned in. I'm Pastor Frank. And all this week, we're kind of basing our Devos on last Sunday's teaching, which I wrapped up the series on living on purpose. And I wonder how many of you are fans of the Lord of the Rings. Laura and I are, both Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of both, he does a brilliant job of illustrating how courage can show up in some of the most unlikely places. And in the case of the Lord of the Rings, in The Hobbit as well, you have two hobbits named Frodo Baggins and Samwise Gamgee. And these guys literally have the courage to save Middle Earth. And they save it from this powerful, this evil presence called Sauron. You know, one of the takeaways from last Sunday, on the teaching last Sunday, which I titled "Making Jesus Famous and Not Us," is how the Old Testament leader Nehemiah believed in the bigness of God, even in the face of overwhelming odds and terrible evil. And one of the characteristics that you see emerge early in the life of Nehemiah and the people that he led was courage. In some of the most unlikely places, it's just common folks for the most part that Nehemiah rallied, but all of them were incredibly courageous. They were willing to trust God and to move forward in faith, even in the midst of the darkness and the evil in their day. And namely, that darkness and that evil were some influential people that not only wanted them to fail in rebuilding their city, they wanted to kill them. And in this make or break moment that you read in chapter 4 of Nehemiah, it's really a powerful, powerful moment where they're exhausted, they're discouraged, they're afraid. You know, Samwise and Frodo, they went through all those things too. We've been through all of those things too. And yet I love this scene. It's a make or break moment in Nehemiah 4, verses 10 and 11, verse 14. I encourage you to read the whole chapter, but let me just read these verses to you. Meanwhile, the people in Judah, this is the people that Nehemiah was leading, the strength of the laborers is giving out. And there is so much rubble that they cannot rebuild the wall. Now, they'd already rebuilt it halfway. Phenomenal. Also, verse 11, our enemies said, before they know it or see us, we will be right there among them and we will kill them and put an end to this work. Well, that's serious. And Nehemiah says, he writes, after I looked things over, I stood up and I said to the nobles and the officials and the rest of the people, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome. And then fight for your families, fight for your sons, fight for your daughters, and fight for your wives and your homes. All of us have faced moments where we feel like there's too much rubble. It's just too hard. And we're tired or we're discouraged, we're exhausted, we battle fear, we battle anxiety. One of the great truths in the story of Nehemiah is that our belief in the bigness of God, a diehard belief in this, as Nehemiah said, this great and awesome God, actually leads to the courage that we need to do what is necessary in those moments. Don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord. Sometimes we forget. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome. See, here's the deal. When God says go, courage requires that we act. I love what Mark Batterson said in his book, All In. It's such a great statement on courage. This is what he said. Courage doesn't wait until situational factors turn into one's favor. It doesn't wait until a plan is perfectly formed. Courage doesn't wait until the tide of popular opinion turns. Courage only waits for one thing, a green light from God. And when God gives the go, it's full steam ahead, no questions asked. What a great word. God gave Nehemiah a green light and his people. Rebuild what is broken. And they courageously stepped forward. And Bethel Church, he's given us that green light as well. In fact, I would say this week, as we spend some time grieving the brokenness in our own community, in our own country, in this time of prayer and fasting and worship all this week. And again, go to our website. There are helps there for fasting and prayer. And there are also prayer points, prayer outline on the back of last Sunday's teaching outline. The prayer points are right on the back of it. But as we walk through this week, may the God of heaven hear us. May he forgive us as we confess our own stuff and the stuff of our nation. May he heal our nation, but may he also find a people in Bethel Church who are willing to believe in the bigness of God and who, in the words of some friends of ours, are willing to dream big, pray hard, and say yes to what God has next, not only for our families and our marriages, but what God has next for us as a church family. And friends, that takes courage. That takes courage. Thanks today for tuning in to Bethel Online Daily Hope.